Hello and welcome to my new series where we will be building a computer. Now, obviously you guys should be able to see, if you are experienced with computers, you should be able to see that the parts, the components that I'm using in this video, in this series, are not the newest or the most expensive or the best performance or quality. I realize that, and I also would like you guys to realize that I am not going to be using this computer for anything. I just don't feel like taking my personal computer apart and putting it back together again. So the first thing we're going to do is lay all of our parts out and make sure we have all the parts that we need. Picking up the camera here and trying to keep it steady, we see that I have a DVD optical disc drive. Now this is optional, of course. Maybe $30 to $45 at a store for a good one. A Blu-ray is usually a little bit more expensive, maybe $20 or $30 more, but Blu-ray is pretty cool. So, well, it depends on what you guys want. Next, we have the first essential, the power supply. Now this is the module right here. This is the thing that's going to be supplying power to every single component in this computer. For this video, and because of recent budget cuts, I was not able to buy any new parts for this build, so I will be using a 230 watt power supply. That is not recommended because it's very low. That's a very low number. It's one of the lowest power supplies ever, but yeah. Moving on, as you can see, I have my motherboard right here. This is the motherboard, and I have a separate internet card because this motherboard is old and doesn't accept internet inputs. This card is not Wi-Fi. It's just for Ethernet cable. Obviously, now you guys are going to be saying, wow, this is an old computer that we're going to be putting together. And yeah, yeah, it is. It was actually a computer in like 2004. We stopped, it was my family's computer, and we didn't really use it starting at 2007 or so. So it's pretty old, but it still works. And for the processor, let me get this guy out of here. For the processor, I'll be using the AMD, what is it? AMD P something Athlon 2. This is a dual core processor. It's probably very slow. I don't know the clock speeds. I'm almost positive they don't even sell this kind of processor anymore. So, because it's just old. And yeah, we will be using, let me just actually get this out of here. There we go. We'll be using 4 gigabytes of Samsung 1600 MHz DDR2 RAM. Again, not the best RAM, but old computer, guys. Keep in mind, it's an old computer. We'll be using the stock heatsink and fan that comes with the processor. This is an Asus fan and heatsink. As you can see, there was thermal paste applied to the bottom, but it's kind of smudged in, so I'm not sure how well it's going to work. Also, guys, keep in mind you're going to want to put any components that are like the RAM, the processor, the motherboard especially, stuff like that have open circuit boards and stuff, never put them on carpet. And it's always a good idea, just gonna swing over here a bit, it's always a good idea to touch the metal part of your case before you touch any of the components with your hands. With your motherboard, it's always best to touch these metal pieces. Never touch the actual circuit board, as it could damage it. Now, obviously, I'm not as worried about damaging these components as I would be if they were brand new, just because they're not brand new and they barely work. So the other things you guys are going to need, and your case should come with this. If it didn't, take your case back right now, because this is probably the most important part of the build. These screws. Now, there's a bunch of screws that go to a bunch of different places. And I would say that the screws, screwing everything in, is the part that I hate the most. That's my least favorite part. And you have the case. So, let's get started here, guys. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take our motherboard. We are going to install the first two components into our motherboard. I'm going to walk over here and sit down right here. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take our processor. Okay? We are going to take our processor and insert it into our motherboard. A good way to do this is to find the black, or kind of the spaces where there aren't any of these gold pegs on the bottom, and try to line them up with these spaces on the processor port. It should fit. Just kind of twist it around. It should fit very easily. There's also notches on the processor, which is a better way to measure it than what I'm doing here. Come on, get in there. Alright. Once it is in, you're going to take this little arm, push it all the way down. You guys are going to feel some pressure, and that's not in all the way. Alright. Goes like this. Sorry, now it's in. So you're going to take the arm, push it all the way down, and lock it into place. Keep in mind that different motherboards may have a different kind of arm that you might have to push in, or like slide around in the lock. The newer and more expensive motherboards nowadays do have that. Next, we're going to be installing our RAM. Now, this is, again, a very delicate item, so if you guys are at all cautious, or don't want your components to be damaged at all, make sure to hold it by the edges, like that. As you can see, there's a notch right here. There's a little break. I'll try to zoom in a little bit more. Oh, let's zoom out. There's a little notch right there, and the slots over here, these slots right here, you guys can barely see that. These slots right here have a matching notch in the center of the slot. That means thus meaning that the RAM can only be inserted one direction. No jokes about that. So first thing you're going to do is pull these little arms back. Now, depending on how many RAM modules you have, it depends on how many you have to pull back. So basically, just take the RAM, select a slot. I would recommend going in the one closest to the processor first. So we're going to slide it in, and you're going to want to match it up with the notch. As you can see, this side is the correct side because it is lined up. And now this is where you want to be very cautious. You want to rest two fingers on the very top of the RAM and push down very hard. Now, this is going to take an actually surprising amount of pressure to get in, but just keep pushing. As long as you are pushing the right way, don't lean your whole weight on it, but just push kind of softly and gently, but hard, until these two little arms click in over it, and then your RAM is secure. If you guys are only installing two modules of RAM, then I would recommend leaving one space, one empty slot in between your two RAM pieces. So like I'm doing right now. Push them in, and there we go. Good job, guys. We have completed the first step in building a computer. We've inserted our processor, and we have inserted our RAM. Next, we are going to be inserting this motherboard into the case. Now, this is going to be very hard for me because it's an older case. It's a very small case, and it's basically going to take a lot of preparation and measuring and time and boring stuff that you guys might find boring, but it has to be done if you want a working computer. So I'm going to come back over here to the camera, and I'm going to move this over to here. Point you down a bit more. Come on. There you go. Zoom out a bit. Alright, I'll zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so you guys may notice that, well, also, if you guys, those of you that just bought all new components, on the back of your case, you will not have this thing right here. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, can you? Yep. Now this right here, it's called an I/O shield. This basically shows you where all the ports from on the back on your motherboard are supposed to be, thus giving you an idea of where you're supposed to mount the motherboard. So right now, I'm going to take the motherboard. Remember, always hold it by the metal pieces. Okay? I'm going to take it, and I'm going to set it right here. And keep in mind, this is a very delicate process that might take a little bit longer than the previous step that we just performed. So there are a lot of wires in the way. I'm not being as cautious as you should be with the motherboard, but basically this is what you guys gotta do. You gotta insert it in here. Gotta get this out of the way. Get that out of the way too. Why is that in the way? Oh! Ha ha ha! No, don't do that. That's seriously how you break the motherboard. Now, obviously, I'm going to say this again. I cannot stress how much I'm stressing, and I cannot stress this enough. I am not trying to take good care of these components. They're old. They're probably almost dead, so they're not going to be of much use to me. I'm just going to scooch this up a bit. No, you need to be down more, don't you? You need to be pointed down like that, but here, I'll do something so you guys can see better. Sorry, this is my first. Okay, no, that's not going to be any better. All right, so basically that is what it should look like when it's in the case. Cases may vary, and basically I'm gonna try to point this on its side. Point it on the side.